Catherine, I also started gardening here recently, and those of you who know me know that that's not the first thing that comes to mind about me. And it was serendipitous. I got a packet of forget-me-nots, and
Here we
and I
go.
put them in the soil outside my little patio here in Benicia, and I just forgot about them, and then the springtime came.
You forgot about the forget-me-not?
Yeah, and then they started sprouting. I was so excited, I almost wet my plants.
Hello, Four Top listeners. Producer Nick here. This week, we are taking a break from the news, and oh man, was this ever the week to take a break from the news. Katherine and Ruby are away on some well-earned vacations right now, and so I have the pleasure of bringing you this fun, insightful, and honestly, relaxing conversation Katherine recently had with occasional co-host Martín Reyes, Master of Wine, and our friend Wendy Phillips, aka the Garden Somm. Hopefully it will inspire you to slow down a bit, take in your surroundings, and enjoy a good glass of wine. You will hear my voice a couple of times during the ad breaks, but otherwise, I bid you adieu and cheers.
We're going to have a lot of fun on this special episode. This is a summer episode about wine and gardens. I think we're going to call it Garden Party.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep. And I have two special guests. Martín Reyes, Master of Wine, joins us again.
Here I am.
And Wendy Phillips, can you tell us all about yourself and where people can find you online? And
Yeah. So I am a Renaissance woman. That's what I describe myself as. So there's plenty of places to find me. You can find me online at thegardensomm.com, on Instagram at thegardensomm. Also, I have got a normal, regular Wendy S. Phillips Instagram where I talk about yoga. And then I also have my floral business, Sweetness and Light Floral Design, on the internet that way. And then also Sweetness and Light Flowers on Instagram. So a little bit about me. I have been deep into gardening and floral design for over a decade, probably like 20 years now, close to 2 decades, and found myself making some just like rituals and routines around gardening and that experience for myself, and drinking wine while doing so. So it sort of inspired this ritual of getting home from my day and picking up my kid from school and heading out into the garden and grabbing a juice box for him and a glass of wine for myself, and just being together, spending time doing garden tasks. And that had been going on for years. And it was such a routine that we'd get home and Izzy's like, I can get my juice box. Do you want me to grab you a glass of wine? And he's 6, so it's super inappropriate. But but we had that ritual going, and that became meaningful time for us to spend together. And then I started snowballing the idea into offering it as a way to get girlfriends together and work on a garden task, whether it's repotting potted plants on a balcony or, working on a plot of land together, setting out irrigation or whatever. But like something about the act of creating something that lives beyond this moment together while drinking wine or beer, whatever the pairing is. And so that's kind of that, like, that's that project. I learned through that, just through doing it, that there was something really therapeutic for myself, and I wanted to start sharing that with others. And then I did a little bit of research to like basically shore up my intuitive understanding of what was happening here, and found that there's lots of research around gardening and getting your hands dirty and putting in that time outside that does increase your mental health, your general well-being. So yeah.
oh, I really want to dig into that.
Nice.
But you know what? It's striking me, those of us who love wine, we talk a lot about the work that happens in the vineyard, and we're imagining how idyllic and bucolic it is out there, but we don't actually get out there except when we're visiting wine country. But I love the idea of drinking wine and then also getting your hands dirty and having that experience, that anyone can do that anywhere. even if you don't have a deck, you can still have potted plants in your house. You can still have that feeling of being connected with the earth.
Yeah. There's tons of research that serotonin is actually released when you put your hands physically in soil and start to work it. If you're outdoors, you get the vitamin D from the sunshine. And so there's like all of these ways that there's actual evidence backing up this sort of feeling that I was having that if we can figure out ways to engage and invite nature into our everyday, we might actually be healthier.
I love a garden party.
Mm-hmm.
I love summertime. I love being outside, being surrounded by flowers.
Yeah.
And drinking wine.
Yeah.
What is that? Like, what's the connection? Why does it feel so good?
So it's that outdoor setting, right? Where we're experiencing nature, we're together. There's a conviviality that it happens where you don't have to take anything too seriously. There's an ease about it, right? So people are able to sort of like be more themselves without holding any pretense around why they're there or anything, really. It just happens that way.
And isn't there's some studies, plenty of studies, right?
Yeah, let me pull that up here. So there was a study in ClinMed, a London medical journal, published in 2018. There was basically a synopsis of over 81 studies researching the impacts of gardening, and then also just like exposure to green spaces and how they benefit us both mentally, but also there's a lot of research done around hospitals and how being able to see something in nature, something green, something verdant, something alive, decrease the amount of pain medications that patients needed in order to recover successfully. But the thing that really jumped out at me was this moment in this article that sort of summarized all these different benefits that you can get from being in nature, was that few complementary therapies have been convincingly shown to be effective, but gardening and nature, which are alternative therapies, offer a proven, cheap, and nearly universally available means to improve the nation's health. And I thought that was like the moment where the impacts become not just individual, but also global.
All right, you guys, I am going to try to whisk you away on a blissful wine vacation simply by using my words. Are you ready?
Oh, yes. After the week I've had, I am so ready for a wine vacation. Let's do it.
Okay. Close your eyes and picture this. The flowing Rhone River, ample sunshine, salty sea spray, the beautifully blue Mediterranean Ocean, and delicious rosé. Are you there yet? Have I transported you away? Do you see the olive trees, the rolling hillsides?
Oh, I am there. What a treat. Where am I?
I know exactly where we are. We're in the Méditerranée IGP, as in the Mediterranean. It's so freaking beautiful down there.
Exactly. This episode is brought to you by Rosé Méditerranée IGP. Whoa, what just happened there? I sounded amazing.
You did, wow. The winemakers of this region produce delicious, idiosyncratic, expressive wines with a sense of place. If you think Ruby is good at spiriting you away to the Mediterranean, you've got to try these wines.
Yeah, and the diversity of this region is what gives these wines their amazing character. It is home to calcareous and limestone soils, areas rich with alluvium close to the Rhone River, and the competing winds of the Mediterranean and the famous Le Mistral.
Le Mistral?
Yeah, Le Mistral is this wind that blows from southern France down the Rhone into the Mediterranean, and it provides the grapes of the Indication Géographique Protégée Méditerranée a nice, cool counterbalance to that heat of the south of France.
We've got so much to tell you about this region, so hold tight, catch up on the news, and we'll see you at the next commercial break. And maybe we'll let you know why we sound so fantastic.
And thank you so much to Rosé Méditerranée IGP for your support of the Foretop. Well, let's get back to wine, guys.
Yes.
Wine.
Why are we here?
We're here for wine. So I used to be an avid gardener. I still do a little bit, but have less space. But I would love how I would just disconnect from the stresses of the world and get into this kind of like weird meditative state when I was gardening. And I can understand why you would drink a glass of wine while you're gardening, because it sort of eases your mind in the same way, and you can just really get in this super relaxed state, right?
Yeah. So I've been teaching floral design for a long time, and in all of my workshops, I would introduce bubbles primarily, because I think it's a fun way to allow people to get out of their head and into the present moment and to stop being so critical about what it is that they're doing. And I think gardening invites you to do that just in and of itself, because as you're working in the garden, you're creating something not for this moment, but for future, right? So you are putting in effort for this moment, and that work is a present experience. The wine part of it helps you be present and helps you linger there a little bit longer. I mean, I've described this experience of having dinner in my home versus having dinner out on my little courtyard patio. And I've got a lovely lush garden around me. And with a glass of wine and a lovely meal and this beautiful setting, I can be there for an hour and a half, where normally if I'm just inside, I'm like finishing the meal in half an hour, getting the dishes into the sink, and then moving on to the next thing.
That's so true.
So it's sort of like offering this moment to just linger and be present with yourself, not pressured to continue to move on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. I think wine offers us that moment to take a break, and gardening does as well. Pairing the two together is just something to elevate both experiences, in my opinion.
They both kind of slow down that clock, don't they?
Yeah.
You know who needs to hear this? Every single American who is overworked. Because think about this. I mean, we started talking about health and wine way back in episode 134, and then also again in 142. And Katherine, you and I have been on this. Wendy, when you bring up gardening and we tie it back into wine, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't think I had much to say, but I think there is a point of view that might be worth sharing. It as a culture, what do we value? We value efficiency. We thrive on scheduling, fitting things in, maximizing
productivity,
impact. Right? There's a performance, like I call what nextism, right?
Yeah.
We're like little machines running around, and not everybody, but culturally speaking, the U.S. is like that. As a matter of fact, when I bring in wines from Europe, they often share what it's like to sell to Belgian importers, Japanese importers, other countries. And then with the U.S. importers, we're seen as business, not no nonsense, but just more of a get it done. Here are the numbers, crunch things, move on.
Yeah. I feel like I've done that these past few days.
Yeah, I know.
My scene has been like, where are we going now? I'm like,
That's true.
next activity.
Yeah, I am as guilty as anyone of that. And where it even makes your free time.
Right.
You were saying this, Wendy, earlier. It makes your free time more productive, and then therefore the rewards. Here's where I'm going with this. The rewards also become these goals, where like the I work hard and I play hard culture, right?
Yeah.
And the play hard, the reward can be a glass of wine, or it could be a binge drinking aspect where you then do that hard, and that's where the overuse of alcohol, and then we're not talking about alcohol abuse when we talk about this culture of wine.
Right.
We're talking about balance.
Right. And creating presence. Right.
With,
because through wine, through gardening, through experience and culture, right?
It's a rejection of excess. You're yielding control to life, to nature. Yeah, we're control freaks on some level, right?
Well, that's how we hypermanage, right?
So wrestling away your control and placing it firmly in the agency of something outside of you, like nature. That's oftentimes how, almost like wine is gardening for the mind. It just forces you to be present. It stretches out the time the way that gardening does too, being in touch with nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I often talk about wine being this little time capsule, but what else is a time capsule is a seed, right? You're putting in this effort now to enjoy something later, and you get to experience that growth, that change that happens even in the bottle, right? Like wine is alive, so are these plants. And of course, it's that moment that you get to experience the start of something, the middle of something, the end of something. And in the end, even like this is the part that I find really fun, is that there's certain gardening tasks like collecting seeds, like my sweet peas. I bloomed them all. They're lovely. They filled the garden with such beautiful aroma. I fully enjoyed them. When I was planting them, I had a glass of Pinot Noir. It was the evening in fall, like November time. So out there in a cozy sweater, planting my seeds and just enjoying that moment. I got to reap the reward this like late spring, early summer. And now the seed pods have formed after they've gone and done their blooming. So now I'm collecting the seed pods, and it's warmer, it's hot. We get to sort of invite what that might look like. So a glass of rosé is perfect. And like now it's summer, so the sun is shining, it's warmer. I don't want something that's super heavy, not even like high alcohol either. So I'm selective about what I pair with that task, because I'm going to be sitting and shucking these peas, removing them from the pods. And I want to be able to do that across the table with my girlfriends, sharing a glass of rosé, and just that conversation that happens. And so all these little tasks can add up to a life well lived, moments shared, memories created. And I think that that's this like cultural piece that the American drinker is having a hard time grappling with, because Europe folds wine into every aspect of their life, and Americans separate it and create this like extra experience around it. And my offer is that bringing a glass of wine while you grab your rake is a way to easily pair and create a lifestyle that brings you closer to that present moment.
And I love the social aspect you're talking about, because normally I would just arrange flowers or garden by myself. But like there is something about using your hands, moving your body, that makes for a freer flow of conversation. I love going on a power walk with my friends, and I feel like once we start moving our bodies, the conversation just flows. Or a run with a friend, and then if you add the wine, then even more so. So I can totally imagine if you're shucking peas, or just repotting plants or whatever it is, moving your body, focusing on something. You're not like staring at each other the whole time. There's not the pressure's not on,
right?
And you're also having a sip of wine. How it must just like really
well,
make
and
for good conversation. What are we doing? We're sober. We're drinking coffee right now. Sitting at a table. We gotta get outside.
I know. Yeah, I think that that's the thing that makes it long lasting too, and that there's no time frame around being in the garden except for maybe the sun, right? Whereas if you take a friend to dinner, there's a beginning, middle, and end to a dinner conversation, and the garden invites you to just be there for as long as you need to be.
Okay, guys, we have been talking about how the Méditerranée IGP is vast, huge, gigantic, enormous.
That's right, it includes 10,500 hectares under vine across many departments. We're talking basically from the historic town of Vienne on the Rhone River all the way down to Corsica.
And I wonder if we should introduce our secret pronunciation weapon, because we're sounding really good when we say Indication géographique protégée Méditerranée. So I have brought in my wonderful daughter, Cece, who is helping us with the French. Now, Cece, there are many départements or departments of France that are part of this beautiful wine region, and I'm wondering if you can read them off for us. Here she comes.
Alpes de Haute-Provence, Alpes-Maritimes, Ardèche, Bouches-du-Rhône, Corse du Sud, Drôme, Hautes-Alpes, Haute-Corse, and Vaucluse-et-Var.
Brava!
Wow.
Way to go.
We will be telling you more about
Rosé Méditerranée IGP
in our next few episodes, so keep tuning in.
And thank you so much to Rosé Méditerranée IGP
for your support of the Foretop.
Wine country is nothing if not a series of gardens.
Yes.
Different kinds of gardens. Obviously, one monoculture of vines, but then we're moving into the biodiversity aspect.
Correct.
And that reminds me of a bigger chat that I had around biodynamics. I'll use that as an example. There's a difference between somebody who is growing grapes, farming biodynamically, who lives and breathes the entire ethos of biodynamics. And of course, Katherine, you were the first person to write a book on wine about biodynamics way back a long time ago.
In the United States.
In the United States, let's clear that up, right? And I spoke to a producer in Portugal, who we work with, who it's an entire lifestyle. It's not just I'm growing this, so it's certified, so I can sell these grapes more, because it's also potentially a good marketing opportunity.
Yeah.
We want to, of course, have a good relationship with the soil and the food and the plant and the universe and the stars. No, this was he lived every moment acknowledging the interconnectedness of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And biodynamics was essentially an extension of that in his viticulture. That conversation versus somebody who's decided to convert conventional farming to biodynamics because it's a good thing to do. You can sense the difference between those two ways of growing the grapes in the manifestation of everything else around them, and then you really get to know what something like biodynamics is beyond the word itself, the broader picture. And I think that something similar there happens with our lifestyle, with gardening, not just having flowers out there because it looks nice. What does it mean to actually get into the lifestyle of gardening?
Yeah, to kind of break in there, how do we culturally like move into this like gardening lifestyle, and what are the benefits? So back to that study that I was referencing earlier, one of the little factoids was that the Department of Health calculates that an increase of only 10%, this is like just gentle physical activity, an average exercise by adults would postpone 6,000 deaths and save, this is a UK publication. So it would save 500 million pounds annually. And that's just by raking and hoeing and getting out there, and like the physical work that it takes to take care of a garden is actually equitable to going to the gym for 20, 30 minutes, right? Or spending an hour out there.
I love what you're saying, because when Martín was talking about like embracing biodynamics as a lifestyle and a personal credo and a philosophy versus just going through the motions, the cool thing about gardening and actually yoga,
Right. I was just about to say yoga.
You're a yoga instructor and biodynamics. Is it doesn't matter if you are fully, if you're fully drinking the Kool-Aid and you fully believe in this lifestyle, this credo. If you just go through the motions, it's still good for you.
Right.
So I can do yoga and say everything everyone's saying about, how good this is for your spirit, that's all bullshit. But guess what? I'll still come out much more relaxed than I went. And if I farm biodynamically, my vines will still be healthier, whether or not I believe in all the metaphysical part, right?
Right.
And if I just rake for half an hour, I don't have to be like, I'm embracing the gardening lifestyle. I'm still going to get my heart rate up. I'm still going to breathe fresh air. And I love it.
This is the intangible part of the conversation around health and wine that's being had that I'm banging my head against.
This is the connection that I was making too.
So let's be clear about one thing. Even though the data is just as strong, in fact, the data hasn't changed. Okay, the data has not changed. The benefits of wine, the J curve is real, even if it's a modest curve of upward swing for moderate consumption of alcohol, but more marked for wine. That curve is real, everyone. Let's just get that part out of the way. The interpretations of the data sets is now changing because of an agenda. The intangible part of wine doesn't depend on these minute data points. Dan Buettner, the blue zones, right? That's what we're talking about. The hidden power of wine, the hidden power of gardening, the hidden power of yoga, the hidden power of biodynamic views of viticulture and agriculture. Broadly speaking, you're planting the seeds of community, of friendships, of slowing down, of enjoying the journey.
And that holding time and holding space just for space's sake is the thing that I find myself doing in the garden. And I want to invite others to do that as well.
You hear that, folks? Community is the ultimate tonic. There's different versions of that. That's our real impact of our health, is that lifestyle.
But just for those who are not familiar with what we're talking about, this Blue Zones book, it was also a Netflix series. Dan Buettner is the name of the journalist who wrote the book. But the concept of these communities around the world where the populations live the longest, and the things that unify these communities is they spend a lot of time outside. Not necessarily doing any specific exercise, but just using their bodies to garden or, work the land. They have a sense of community, and except for one community, they all drink some sort of wine or alcoholic beverage. It's kind of part of their culture.
There's a quote back to sort of this yoga thing that I hear often and wanted to pull in because I felt like it just hits the nail on the head, which is by Lao Tzu, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. And so there is a moment in which we can still have all of the tasks to do and understand that however long it takes is however long it takes.
Can you say that one again, please?
Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished.
Wendy, I love that quote, and it strikes me, everything does get accomplished, and it happens by season.
Right.
And you were speaking earlier about drinking Pinot Noir in the fall
Right.
and rosé in the summer, and it strikes me that someone who appreciates wine appreciates the seasonality of not only consuming wine. I think there are, wines that taste better at different times of year, but also the season out in the vineyard. And I think if you garden at home, you really understand that story of, the story that we as wine educators are always telling consumers about, the cycle, the life cycle out in the vineyard. And I think folks who do garden really understand that at a deeper level, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think that there's a way in which you put so much work and effort into something and how it's supposed to be, right? And we were talking a lot about the winemaking process and like trying to achieve these different things. And a gardener understands that no matter how much work or effort you put into trying to get a garden to do the thing you want it to do, it's still going to do what it does. It will give whatever it needs to give and move through its seasonality the way that it needs to. And I think trying to control that and finding beauty in whatever comes out of the garden, like appreciating the lesson or the time or the experience, the offering that the garden has, the flowers, the plants, for what it is, and not trying to make it something that it's not, helps us to connect back to ourselves and appreciate our own little foibles or things that we wish we could change but can't manicure out of us.
Yeah.
This may be a minor point, and I don't know if it's worth anything, but there's something that it has in common with wine in the sense that it's one of those drinks, one of those few, consumables where portions of the producer universe doesn't really give a shit what you think about their wine.
Yeah.
They make it
Right.
for themselves. They're not doing focus groups on consumers. They say, whoever doesn't like this, I don't care about them.
Mm-hmm.
If you do,
This isn't for them.
This isn't for them. This is
Mhm.
for those that want to taste what this place during this time from this plant
Mm-hmm.
gives us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And in some ways, that kind of echoes, Wendy, what you just said about the garden,
Right.
yielding control
Yeah.
and experiencing the journey.
Surrender.
Surrender.
Well, I think that is a beautiful place to pause this conversation. I hope we can have many more like this.
I love that.
But before we go, how about a dessert course? One of us, or maybe the two of you, can recommend something that our listeners might enjoy.
I think that we can all three talk about it because we were there very recently, and this was a phenomenal place, a restaurant called Repubblica
Mm-hmm.
in downtown Portland, not too far from here, where it is exquisitely crafted, multi-course, ambitious Mexican cuisine with Mexican-inspired cocktails, Mexican wine, at levels that are akin to the French cuisine, the preparation, the presentation,
And
a lot of from Oaxaca, a lot of cultures, a lot of innovation, both visually and flavor-wise, that just blew me away. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
I love that experience. My major takeaways were how they took the seasonal local ingredients, like what's happening here in Portland, and transmuted it into this conversation with Mexico, and like having this whole beautiful array of offerings that highlighted this culture and the history on every plate, but still anchored in this place in this moment. And the thing that I was left with at the end of the night, the dessert course, this extra bite we got to take home at the end of the evening, was this lovely little cookie that I didn't know. It was presented in a brown box with a little simple twine, and I popped it in my purse and found it the next day and opened it up and was like, oh my God, it's a flower. Like, it's imprinted with this flower and a hand holding it. And it just gave me chills. Yeah, I was like, this is perfect. And it was delightful, and it let the experience continue on later. And for me, that's what life is all about. And there's no better dessert course than one that keeps bringing you back.
It was a garden party in a little tiny box.
Totally.
I love how with every course, they really tell you a little bit of history.
Mhm.
They really educate you, but it's not too long.
Bite-sized.
Fantastic.
It's so fun having dinner with you guys. Well, with that, this has been the Four Top Podcast. I am our executive producer, Katherine Cole.
And I am our occasional co-host, Martín Reyes.
And I am Wendy Phillips, Garden Somm extraordinaire.
The Garden Somm.
This was our garden party.
This is our garden party.
Keelan King is the composer and performer of our theme music. Please visit our website at thefourtop.org to learn more about us and listen to back episodes. If you have not already subscribed, please do so on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, and please leave us a rating. Signing out from Portland, Oregon, where we are all enjoying the summer rain.
Oh yeah, baby.
It's Katherine.
And Wendy.
And Martín.
And everyone enjoy your gardens this summer, no matter how big or small they are, and have a garden party with some wine. That was fun.